I had always believed that honesty and fairness were the cornerstones of any relationship. That is why, after 5 years together, I never expected Jessica to betray me the way she did. When that cease and desist letter arrived claiming I had stolen intellectual property that was rightfully mine, I knew my world was about to be turned upside down. I tried to warn her that her greed would be her downfall, but she was too blinded by ambition to listen. Before I dive into how my vindictive ex went from suing me to losing her career, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever dealt with someone who dug their own grave. My journey into software development was not a traditional one. Unlike many of my peers who had computer science degrees from prestigious universities, I was entirely self-taught. I spent countless nights hunched over my laptop learning to code through online tutorials and documentation. By the time I was 27, I had built a modest but respectable career as a freelance programmer, taking pride in solving complex problems for my clients. I met Jessica at a regional tech conference in Seattle. She stood out immediately in the crowd of mostly hoodie-wearing developers. Her tailored suit and confident stride spoke of someone who knew her worth. She was working as an associate for Brennan and Associates, a prestigious law firm specializing in intellectual property and technology law. "You explain complex concepts in a way that makes sense," she told me after my presentation on database architecture. "Most techies get lost in jargon, but you make it accessible." What started as a professional admiration quickly blossomed into something more. Jessica and I had complementary skills that made us feel like the perfect team. My technical knowledge, paired with her legal expertise, meant we could talk for hours about the intersection of technology and law. She understood the challenges I faced in my work in ways that no one else in my life did. The first 2 years of our relationship were nothing short of blissful. We supported each other through career challenges and celebrated every small victory. I was there when she won her first major case, and she cheered me on when I landed contracts with bigger clients. We were building dreams together, talking about the future with the certainty of people who believed they had found their forever partner. During this time, I began working on a side project that I was particularly passionate about. It was a project management software specifically designed for small creative agencies, allowing them to track workflows, manage client communications, and handle billing in one integrated system. What made my software unique was its adaptive learning component that could customize workflows based on team behavior patterns. "This could be huge," Jessica said one night as I showed her the latest features I had added. "You are solving problems that the big players in the market are ignoring." Jessica became my biggest cheerleader, offering free legal advice on how to protect my work and structure potential business deals. She was fascinated by my development process, constantly asking questions about how specific features worked and how I planned to scale the system. As the software began to gain attention from local businesses, Jessica suggested I start a small consulting business around it. I was hesitant at first, comfortable with my freelance work, but her enthusiasm was contagious. We spent weekends drafting business plans and strategizing market approaches. I trusted her completely, never questioning her increasing interest in the technical details of my creation. Looking back, I should have noticed the subtle shifts in our relationship. Jessica began to change around the 3-year mark. The woman who once admired my passion for creating over profit started making more comments about my modest lifestyle. Her own career was advancing rapidly with a promotion to senior associate that came with a significant salary increase. "You could be making so much more with your talents," she would say, eyeing my comfortable but far from luxurious apartment. "Why are you selling yourself short?" What I initially took as encouragement to reach my potential gradually revealed itself as dissatisfaction with my priorities. Jessica started attending more upscale networking events, often without me. She began to criticize my casual wardrobe and my preference for quiet nights in rather than flashy social gatherings. The breaking point came during an argument about finances. Jessica had suggested we buy a condo in an expensive neighborhood far beyond what I felt comfortable spending. "Why are you so afraid of success?" she snapped when I expressed my concerns about the mortgage payments. "Sometimes I think you are content with mediocrity." Her words stung more than she knew. That night, as I lay awake examining our relationship, I realized we had fundamentally different values. Jessica measured success in status and material wealth, while I found fulfillment in creative problem-solving and work-life balance. After 5 painful weeks of trying to reconcile our differences, we made the decision to end our relationship. It was heartbreaking but seemed amicable enough. We divided our shared possessions without much conflict. Jessica found a new apartment quickly, and we promised to remain respectful of each other. The day she moved out, something changed. Her warmth disappeared, replaced by a business-like efficiency that felt foreign after 5 years together. She returned her key without meeting my eyes and left with a curt goodbye. I chalked it up to the pain of separation, never imagining the calculated betrayal that was already in motion. 2 months after our breakup, I was meeting with a potential client when they mentioned seeing a similar software concept being promoted by Franklin Tech Solutions, a mid-sized competitor in our region. Curious, I looked up their newest offering and felt my stomach drop. The interface designed, the workflow structure, even the adaptive learning component bore striking similarities to my project. Too many similarities to be coincidental. The discovery that Jessica had been secretly documenting my software design hit me like a physical blow. A mutual friend in the tech community reached out with a warning that left me reeling. I do not know how to tell you this, Ace, but Jessica has been showing detailed documentation of your software to people in the industry. She has been claiming significant contribution to its development. Further investigation revealed an even more painful truth. Jessica had been dating Thomas Franklin, the CEO of Franklin Tech Solutions, for at least 3 months before our breakup. The same company that was now developing software suspiciously similar to mine. The betrayal was not just professional but deeply personal. I was still processing this information when a courier delivered an official-looking envelope to my door. Inside was a formal cease and desist letter from the law offices of Brennan and Associates, the very firm where Jessica worked. The letter claimed that I had stolen intellectual property belonging to Franklin Tech Solutions and demanded that I immediately stop development of my software. My hands shook as I read further. Not only were they demanding I abandon my project, but they were also suing me for $1.2 million in damages. The letter alleged that I had used proprietary concepts developed by their client during my contract work in the industry. It was a complete fabrication but crafted in legal language that made my innocent project sound like deliberate theft. The panic was immediate and overwhelming. I had always operated with integrity, building my software from scratch in my free time, completely separate from any client work. How could they possibly claim ownership of my ideas? The answer became clear as I read through the detailed descriptions of their intellectual property. Only someone intimately familiar with my development process could have provided such specific information. Jessica had weaponized everything I had shared with her during our relationship. In a moment of desperate hope, I reached out to Jessica directly, thinking there must be some misunderstanding. Her response was coldly dismissive. "You should have taken your career more seriously, Ace. This is business, nothing personal. I suggest you get a good lawyer." Her words confirmed what I already suspected. This was a calculated attack, not a misunderstanding. With my limited savings, I found an affordable lawyer who specialized in intellectual property law, Keith Mendez. His initial assessment was not encouraging. "I will be honest with you, Ace. You are in a vulnerable position. Without proper documentation proving you originated these concepts, and with a major law firm backing them, this could not only bankrupt you, but destroy your professional reputation." Keith explained that I had made a critical mistake common among self-taught developers. I had never properly documented my work process or filed for protection of my intellectual property. My project existed in code repositories and on my personal devices, but I had no legal shield against their claims. The weeks leading up to the preliminary hearing were the darkest of my life. I suffered from anxiety attacks that would wake me in the middle of the night, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. How could I fight against a wealthy company and a law firm that specialized in these cases? I was a single developer with limited resources going up against people who navigated the legal system for a living. The situation worsened when I was served with additional documents claiming I had violated non-compete agreements. This was another fabrication, but the legal language made it sound plausible. I had never signed such agreements for the type of work they were claiming. My suspicions were confirmed when Keith pointed out discrepancies in the documentation. Some of the papers they submitted included my signatures on documents I had never seen before. Jessica had not only betrayed my trust but had potentially committed fraud by creating backdated documents with forged signatures. This goes beyond aggressive legal tactics, Keith said, studying the signatures with a frown. If we can prove these signatures were forged, it changes the nature of the case entirely. The realization that Jessica had likely been planning this for over a year while we were still together was devastating. All those questions about my process, the late nights she spent helping me organize my work, the access I had given her to my home office, it had all been part of a long game to steal my creation. Friends and family, seeing my deteriorating mental state, suggested I consider settling despite knowing I was innocent. Sometimes it is better to cut your losses, my brother said. You can create something new. Is this worth destroying yourself over? I nearly gave in to their advice. The weight of fighting this battle seemed insurmountable. I contemplated abandoning everything I had worked for simply to escape the crushing pressure. It was during this lowest point, while clearing out old storage bins to distract myself, that I discovered a potential lifeline. An old external hard drive contained email backups from the past 3 years. Additionally, I found that my cloud storage had maintained version histories of my work, with timestamps that clearly predated any involvement with Franklin Tech. Most crucially, I found our shared tablet that Jessica had forgotten to take when she moved out. On it were text messages between her and Thomas that revealed their true intentions. He has no idea how valuable this could be, she had written to Thomas. His talent is wasted on small-time clients. We can take this mainstream with your resources and my legal know-how. Another message read, do not worry about his reaction. He avoids conflict and will probably give up rather than fight a legal battle he cannot afford. These discoveries coincided with information from an industry contact that Thomas's company had been struggling financially before announcing their new software initiative. They had lost several major clients and were desperately seeking new revenue streams. My innovation had not just been convenient, it had been necessary for their survival. Armed with this new evidence, I sought out a more experienced lawyer, Maya Robertson, who had previously gone up against Brennan and Associates and won. Unlike Keith, she saw potential in my case. They are counting on intimidating you into submission, Maya said after reviewing my files. But what they have done crosses several ethical and legal lines. We are not just going to defend you, we are going to countersue and raise ethics violations. Maya's strategy was comprehensive. We would meticulously gather evidence to not only prove my ownership of the intellectual property but also demonstrate the calculated nature of their attack. This included email trails showing my development timeline, code repositories, with version histories and statements from developers I had consulted with during early stages of the project. Perhaps the most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. In her role as an associate at Brennan and Associates, Jessica had violated attorney-client privilege by using confidential information from her firm to target me. Maya uncovered instances where Jessica had accessed client files unrelated to her assigned cases, looking for information that could be used against me. As we built our case, Maya discovered that Franklin Tech had a history of aggressive tactics against smaller competitors. She found 3 other developers who had been similarly targeted in the past 2 years, forced to abandon promising projects under legal threats. None had fought back as thoroughly as we were preparing to do. Jessica's overconfidence proved to be a critical weakness in their strategy. The legal filings contained inconsistencies that suggested rushed preparation. Dates did not align, claims contradicted each other, and some of the technical descriptions revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of how my software actually worked. Following Maya's advice, I adopted a strategic approach in preliminary hearings. I appeared defeated and vulnerable, giving Jessica and her legal team the false impression that I was on the verge of giving up. This led them to become increasingly aggressive in their demands, which only strengthened our position for the countersuit. Their legal team, believing they had me cornered, made an extensive discovery request, demanding access to all my devices, accounts, and development notes. They wanted everything related to my software development over the past 5 years. This is where we implement some malicious compliance, Maya said with the first smile I had seen from her. They want everything. Let us give them everything. I spent the next 2 weeks organizing what would become a mountain of evidence that not only proved my case but would overwhelm their legal team. We provided over 10,000 pages of development logs, communications, and personal notes. Every piece was meticulously indexed and cross-referenced, but the sheer volume meant their attorneys would have to spend countless billable hours sorting through it all. Their frustration became evident during the discovery review period. Jessica's legal team filed a complaint about the volume of documentation, claiming we were deliberately attempting to obstruct the process. The judge, however, noted that they had requested all related documents, and we were simply complying with their broad request. The turning point came during the evidentiary hearing when I presented the tablet containing Jessica's incriminating messages. Their legal team objected vehemently, but the judge allowed the evidence since the tablet had been jointly owned during our relationship and contained communications directly relevant to the case. A forensic technology expert testified to authenticate the timestamps and development history of my work, confirming that the software concepts had originated with me years before any involvement with Franklin Tech Solutions. The expert also pointed out multiple instances where the proprietary technology claimed by Franklin Tech matched my documented work down to specific variable names in the code. As the evidence mounted against them, I noticed the judge's expression growing increasingly skeptical toward Jessica's claims. During her testimony, she struggled to explain technical aspects of the software that she claimed to have co-developed, revealing her limited understanding of the actual technology. In a desperate attempt to salvage their case, Jessica tried to introduce new evidence that was clearly fabricated. Documents suddenly appeared that purported to show collaborative development sessions that had never occurred. The timestamps on these documents, however, conflicted with other verified records, and our forensic expert quickly identified signs of digital manipulation. Perhaps the most satisfying moment came when Thomas Franklin, facing mounting evidence and potential perjury charges, began to distance himself from Jessica's claims. Under cross-examination, he admitted that he had relied entirely on Jessica's representations about the origin of the software concepts. Ms. Walsh assured me that these ideas were developed collaboratively and that she had legal rights to pursue their development. He testified effectively, throwing Jessica under the bus to protect himself. The judge's ruling was unequivocal. All claims against me were dismissed, and the judge took the extraordinary step of suggesting that my lawyer file for malicious prosecution. The court finds not only that the plaintiff failed to establish any claim to the intellectual property in question, but that there is substantial evidence suggesting this lawsuit was filed with malicious intent and potentially fraudulent documentation, the judge stated. The defendant is free to pursue appropriate legal remedies. As Jessica left the courtroom, her face was ashen. For the first time since this ordeal began, she could not meet my eyes. The tables had completely turned, and now she was the one facing an uncertain future. Following the judge's suggestion, Maya filed a countersuit seeking legal expenses compensation for defamation and punitive damages. We also submitted a formal ethics complaint to the State Bar Association detailing Jessica's misconduct, including the forged documents and misuse of confidential information. The consequences for Jessica were swift and severe. Brennan and Associates, concerned about their reputation and potential liability, conducted their own internal investigation. Within 2 weeks, Jessica was terminated from her position. The firm issued a public statement distancing themselves from her actions, claiming they had been unaware of her misconduct. 6 months later, after a thorough investigation, the Bar Association suspended Jessica's license to practice law pending a disciplinary hearing. The suspension effectively ended her legal career, as no reputable firm would touch her with such a serious ethics violation on her record. Thomas Franklin and his company fared little better. Once the details of the case became public, Franklin Tech Solutions faced a shareholder lawsuit alleging mismanagement and fraud. The company's stock value plummeted, and several key clients terminated their contracts. A regulatory investigation into their business practices revealed other instances of questionable conduct, leading to additional legal troubles. In the end, Jessica truly lost everything, as the thumbnail suggested. Her career was in ruins, her professional reputation destroyed, and her financial future uncertain. Thomas Franklin was forced to step down as CEO of his own company, which was eventually acquired at a fraction of its former value. The countersuit was settled out of court for an amount that not only covered all my legal expenses but provided substantial compensation for the emotional distress and damage to my professional reputation. Most importantly, I retained full rights to my software with proper legal protection this time. Ironically, the publicity surrounding the case brought attention to my software from legitimate investors and potential clients. What Jessica and Thomas had tried to steal became more valuable because of their actions. Several technology blogs covered the story, portraying me as a creative developer who fought back against corporate theft. Despite this vindication, I had complicated feelings about Jessica's downfall. There was a certain justice in seeing her face consequences for her actions, but I took no pleasure in watching someone I had once loved lose everything she had worked for. The woman I had shared 5 years of my life with was now a cautionary tale in legal ethics seminars. The process of emotional healing took longer than the legal battle. Trust did not come easily to me anymore. I found myself questioning people's motives in both professional and personal interactions. My friends worried that the experience had fundamentally changed me, made me cynical and guarded. It was through my newly established software company that I met Natalie, a project manager at one of my client firms. What began as a strictly professional relationship gradually evolved into friendship as we worked closely together implementing my software at her company. Unlike Jessica, Natalie valued honesty and transparency above all else. She was direct about what she wanted and needed both professionally and eventually personally. There were no hidden agendas or calculated moves, just genuine connection. When our relationship shifted from professional to personal, it was with clear eyes and mutual respect. The entire experience fundamentally changed my approach to both business and personal relationships. I learned to protect myself without becoming bitter. All my business dealings now included clear documentation and proper legal protections. In personal relationships, I became better at recognizing red flags and valuing actions over words. Perhaps the most important lesson was about karma and allowing people to reveal who they truly are through their actions. Jessica believed she was orchestrating my downfall, but her own actions eventually led to her ruin. I did not have to seek revenge. I simply had to stand my ground and let the truth emerge. The freedom that came from focusing on creation rather than revenge was profound. While Jessica and Thomas were dealing with the fallout of their actions, I was building something valuable, something that helped other creative professionals streamline their work. Looking back now, 3 years after that fateful lawsuit, I sometimes wonder if justice served is always satisfying. The vindication was sweet, but the collateral damage extensive. Would I have chosen a different path if I had known how completely Jessica would fall? Probably not. Some lessons can only be learned through consequences. Sometimes the best response to betrayal is not elaborate revenge, but simply letting people face the natural results of their own choices. Jessica thought she could exploit my trust and steal my creation, but in the end, she built the scaffold of her own professional execution. Success truly is the best form of vindication. My software company now employs 15 people and serves clients across the country. The project that Jessica and Thomas tried to steal has evolved into something even more innovative than my original vision. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? How did you handle it? And do you think they ultimately faced appropriate consequences for their actions? Share your stories in the comments below, and if this tale of justice served resonated with you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself can lead to unexpected victories. Thanks for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the people who try to dim your light only end up burning themselves.